Is the date and time for our public hearing on our 2023-24 audit. So at this time, I would like to ask Mary Beth Rogers, our Executive Director of Financial Matters or Business Affairs, to come up and introduce our audit presentation, please.
We have our annual audit report, and I have Taylor. He's going to present for us the audit and the findings on it for the year ended June 30th, 2024. So I'll let you have Taylor take over.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. To get rolling here, my name is Taylor Boonenberg. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm an audit manager with Hungerford. I've been with them going on 7 years now, and as well as 7 years with working with the Clarkston district. So very happy to be here. We'll run over the audit tonight. We'll keep it nice and brief, some high-level takeaways, and hopefully make it nice and digestible for the non-accountants out there. Even though I know everyone's been, we're dying all day just to hear this presentation. So we'll get rolling right into it. So the first thing to kind of cover here, and the big question, right? How did we do on the audit? And this is covered in the independent auditor's report. It's the first thing you will flip to when looking through this bigger binded copy here of the audit report, the financial statements. And it's in the independent auditor's report. It's a letter format, so pretty routine. Really no changes from last year as far as that goes. So template language there, kind of tailored to the district, but not a result of any issues or irregularities there. So, but the main thing to cover here is the audit opinion, right? So that's right away the first kind of section in the independent auditor's report. And we exclaimed an unmodified opinion for fiscal year 2024. And what does that mean, right? Unmodified. Essentially, it's that highest, passing grade for the audit, the best kind of audit opinion that you can get, and as well, the only audit opinion that Michigan Department of Education accepts. But what does that mean in kind of how you read it, and what does unmodified mean? It's really the highest level of assurance there that the financial statements are free from material misstatement, and that they are presented in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. So that information that we're looking at there is materially accurate, right? It's not going to make any reader making a disinformed decision there. And then everything you're looking at, the financial statements, how we recorded it, how we're presenting it there, that it's all in accordance with those generally accepted accounting principles. So not straying away from any of those regular presentation or format. More in the letter, there's a little bit about our scope of our review of internal controls over financial reporting, so our kind of look at those checks and balances over how those financial transactions are recorded. No audit findings there, so all good things to point out there. And then the last thing I wanted to point out this year, there were no new accounting pronouncements. It seems since when I kind of started in 2018, every summer we'd have some big accounting pronouncement, some big accounting update to do. And not only is that, a lot of work on our end as the audit firm, but it's a ton of work for your business office, really evaluating that new standard, that new update, understanding, how does it impact the district? What do we need to do to respond to that accounting pronouncement, that change? So a ton of work on both sides. Love to say that we didn't have to do that this year, so a little bit of reprieve is very welcome for both sides. So kind of getting into the detail here, let's move our minds back to June 30, 2024. So where did we end the fiscal year? So a little look at that. So looking at the balance sheet separated by the different types of funds. So we have the general fund, that primary operating fund. We have the special revenue funds, including your food service fund, your child care fund, the student school activity fund, and the ITV fund. Next, we have the debt service funds, comprised of a number of different debt service funds listed up there. And then lastly, we have our capital projects funds, consisting of your 2019 construction fund and your 2023 construction funds. So those funds set up to hold that money from those bond proceeds to help pay for that rebuild, reconstruction, remodel, all those different kind of projects going on in the district. But again, sticking more in the general fund here, a little look at total assets versus total liabilities and that current ratio there. So a little over 2 for that current ratio. So assets to liabilities, right? Looking at what are our current financial resources on hand that are readily available to help pay for those liabilities that are coming up, right? Those current liabilities, payables, salaries payable, those sorts of items there. So pretty healthy as we end the fiscal year with the general fund, and as well a pretty healthy fund balance. We'll hit on that a little bit more later. Sticking more in the general fund here, a look at the past 4 fiscal years and revenues, expenditures, and that net change in fund balance. So if we imagine a column Off to the right here, that would be fiscal year 2020. A big thing happened in 2020. The pandemic created a lot of additional expenditures, a lot of additional obligations for the school districts across Michigan and in the county, or the country rather. And with that, increase in expenditures, we had increases in revenues to follow that. So some new sources of revenue to help respond to those additional expenditures, those additional obligations that the districts had to undertake. So as we look at the fiscal years going along, we see those expenditures ticking up, and with those revenues kind of going up as well, matching those additional expenditures that the district is incurring. And then as well, we look at the net change in fund balance. So a pretty positive net change in fund balance, right, going the right way every year that we like to see. So building up that fund balance to help cover any additional, unknowns in the future. And then as well, just kind of showing a real great management of financial resources there from fiscal year to fiscal year. A visual look rather of where are all these financial resources coming from. So starting up top in that orange cell, we have our local sources. Those would be your property tax revenues, and more significantly your interest earnings on cash and investments held. Next, the blue piece of the pie, definitely the biggest piece, is your state sources. So that would be your state school aid at about 80% of the total general fund revenue there. So very, very significant, that state aid revenue, helping pay for various instruction and supporting services throughout the district. Next, in our green sliver of the pie, we have our federal sources. That would be your more federal restricted grants. Think of the nutrition program, right, helping running your lunch program, the special education cluster, those types of grants at about 3.9%. And then lastly, at 6% is our inter-district sources, so that those resources coming from the ISD to kind of help the district. Look at where all that money is being spent for the fiscal year. So again, in the general fund, the bigger piece of the pie being instruction at just over 61% there. So not really anything alarming or shocking with that percentage. Pretty standard there. What are we here to do? To provide instruction to the kids. So nothing really alarming with that percentage there. The next bigger makeup of almost 37% is your supporting services. So the various supporting services across the district, right? General business administration, transportation, pupil support, so on and so forth. And then the two last little smaller slivers up there, community services at about 0.5% and debt service at about 1.2%. And a 5-year trend look at the general fund balance. So starting in fiscal year 20, all the way up to this fiscal year, the past fiscal year rather, fiscal year 2024. Again, that positive uptick in fund balance. So pretty solid financial management resources there, building up that fund balance for any future costs as we move into fiscal 25 and beyond. Moving along onto the single audit, the federal compliance audit. So this would be the smaller binded copy that you'd have in front of you. This is our report on the federal grants and our audit of those federal grants. Back to the opinion there. So we'd explained an unmodified opinion for each major program that we audited this year. So again, that highest level of assurance, free from material misstatement. A little bit more about our internal controls over compliance. In the federal audit, that single audit environment, we are required to evaluate and test internal controls. And with those tests came no compliance, or no non-compliance rather, and no audit findings. And then lastly, the CFA, so that statement that's within this copy here, showing all those federal grants is fairly stated in all material respects in relation to the financial statements. So where we're exclaiming that opinion over those major programs, those programs that we audited specifically, it's not necessarily those programs that we didn't audit. So that's that in relation to opinion with the overall audit opinion on those financial statements. Little summary here of the single audit rather from year to year. So for fiscal year 23, we had about 11.6 million in total federal expenditures. Our Type A programs, it's a threshold that we evaluate for the audit. That's any federal expenditure, any federal program that has expenditures over $750,000. Last year was the Education Stabilization Fund, those ESSER funds. That's one of those emergency funding sources. We have the Special Education Cluster, consistently a Type A program, and then as well the Child Nutrition Cluster. Of those, the major programs we tested in fiscal 23 was that Education Stabilization Fund and the Special Education Cluster, and just those two programs there consisted of 78% of that total federal expenditures there. So very, very considerable. In fiscal 23, definitely that Education Stabilization Fund was very, very considerable. Now, when we're moving into 24, we have about $6.5 million in total federal expenditures. That big decrease was expected, and that is really due to the Education Stabilization Fund, that funding going away and really going down. And as we look at the major programs tested in fiscal 24, that was not one, as it did not go above that type A threshold. With that, the two programs we tested in 24, the Emergency Connectivity Fund and the Child Nutrition Cluster, so two different programs for fiscal 24, and those two consisted of about 35% of total federal expenditures for fiscal 24. And lastly, for both fiscal years in that compliance audit, the single audit, we had no audit findings reported, so all good things there. Lastly, is the letter to the Board of Education, excuse me. So that should be the last thing included in your packet. It is about 3 or 4 pages, a letter to the Board of Ed. Again, required communication here, so it's not a result of any issues or irregularities that came up during the audit. This is where we would start to explain any changes to the planned scope of the audit, any disagreements, any difficulties that we had. Pleased to say we had none. Always a good audit coming here to the Clarkston Community Schools District, so all good things there. And then the last thing to hit on in this letter too is that general fund ending fund balance. So that's at the end of the year, sitting at about 22% of fiscal 25's original budgeted expenditures. So looking into fiscal 25, I know we're already a few months in now, but a pretty solid fund balance percentage there. We like to recommend between 10 and 20, so just over 20 is pretty solid. Stable operating funds, right, helping avoid any needs for short-term borrowing, setting up a good base as you move into the next fiscal year. And that kind of brings us to a wrap. I'm happy to answer any questions now, but of course, if there's anything that pops up, please feel free to get into contact with us.
Okay, this will be an agenda item later on, but this is a public hearing, so at this time, are there any members of the public that have comments or questions for the auditor? Very good. Well, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
It is 7:06, and we will call to order the regular meeting of the Clarkston Board of Education. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1.6 is the roll call. Mrs. McLean, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Sivers? Here. Mrs. McGinnis? Here. Mr. Heyer?
Here.
Mrs. Love?
Here.
Mrs. Egan?
Here.
Mrs. Crane?
Here.
Mr. Need?
Here. We are all present. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community hearing. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in agenda items 3 and 9. Item 2 is approval of the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the consent agenda as presented. Support.
Motion made and supported. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 3 is the first opportunity for citizens to address the board. You're given 2 opportunities to address the board. Under this item, item 3.1, you can ask to address the board on any topic that's on tonight's agenda. And then under item 9, you're welcome to address the board on any topic. When making comments, please state your name and address. Direct your comments here to the board president. Each person may speak for up to 2 minutes. Per established procedures, the board will not respond to questions or interact with the speaker during public comment, although we may refer the matter to our administration for follow-up with that particular citizen. Mrs. Mahoney, I saw you checked. Okay, there are no citizens that want to address the board on agenda topics tonight. And again, there'll be another opportunity under item 9 to speak and address the board on any topic. Item 4 is our superintendent update. Dr. Ryan.
Thank you, President Lee. show gratitude and thanks to all veterans. This being November 11th, our school district was in full swing of having different presentations and assemblies, inviting our veterans, both the family members and our community members, into our schools to be recognized and celebrated. I was very, very pleased and proud to see how our students rose to the occasion. I had an opportunity to stop through several of our elementaries and our junior high school today, of which tonight a couple of our presenters at our junior high service will be here to share some of their thoughts that they shared during that presentation and that assembly. But I want to share just one quick side note at North Sash. One of grandfather veterans who served 2 tours in Vietnam took me aside after, and I'm not going to say his name here publicly. If he hears me this night and is listening, or people who knew he was there and overheard our conversation. But it was touching to hear from him to say to me that thinking over the last 50 years that the best show of appreciation, love, and connectedness that he has had was from the kids at North Sash Elementary. And it wasn't just here. He's like, I've been back here, this is my 3rd time through. And he said that, you know, what a tip of the hat to this great country. And the idea that, you know, sometimes it's the smallest kindergartners speaking up, singing at the top of their lungs, totally off key, and letting it all hang out, showing that love and respect. And when it comes from home, where these individuals are uncles and fathers and grandfathers, and we've been identified for those service members that are away from their families right now, we owe a debt of gratitude for all those individuals. And as your superintendent in the school district, I don't want a night passing on November 11th to not show that appreciation. So I ask all of you that are in listening range of this, whether you're at home or in the audience tonight, if you have a family member, friend, or a neighbor, or somebody you know that was a service for this great country, take a second. You don't know what the power of a simple email, a phone call, a yell across the street when you're raking leaves, whatever it is, your connection in there makes a big difference to those people who serve this country throughout the ages. So I want to put that in the room. Also want to do some congratulations. One is to Stacy Cuzio, one of our central office administrators, who this week was inducted into the Gerstacker Fellowship Program. It's a major educational honor where they do a lot of studying into the best practices for education, and they literally go to a destination point around the globe as part of this foundation to support learning, to bring that type of learning into Clarkston. So great job, Ms. Puzio. Thank you. I also want to recognize Mr. Gary Call, and I thought I saw him in the hallway. I don't know if he's still here. Is he hiding? Well, then he'd love you all to know that he's a finalist for the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals High School Principal of the Year, one of 3 in the entire state of Michigan. So if you know Mr. Call, you see him on the street, again, another one to give a shout out to. Somebody's one of the hardest working people in any school district in America. And we're hopefully later this month find out if he is selected as the Principal of the Year. In my book, he already is, and for many of you out there, I know he is as well. Finally, I want to give a shout out and an encouragement for our CHS girls volleyball team. Well, you know what? They're on to the regional competitions tomorrow night. They're going to be in against Bloomfield. They're going to be in Bloomfield Hills playing Marion High School, which is one of the top schools in the state of Michigan for volleyball as well. I want to cheer on our girls, and hopefully I'll see a lot of you guys out there tomorrow night as well. So with that, I'll turn it back to President Need for the remainder of our meeting. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Ryan. We have some presentation items tonight. The first is some awards from the Michigan Schools Public Relations Association for the district. And at this time, I would like to call up Kelly Allen.
Much shorter than the last one. Hello and good evening. I'm Kelly Allen. I'm the Director of Public and Community Relations for Clarkston Community Schools, and it is my pleasure to introduce one of my colleagues, Rebecca Fannin. She is in a similar position to mine in West Bloomfield Schools, and she has been one of my go-tos for many, many years. She has a few awards to talk about today, so without further ado.
Good evening. I couldn't be more happy to be here this evening. Kelly's already said who I am and where I'm from, but it is my pleasure to be here on behalf of the Michigan School Public Relations Association, or MSPRA. MSPRA is Michigan's premier organization for school communicators, with more than 200 members statewide. It represents those on the front line of communicating about our public schools, amazing students, staff, and stories. Better? Feels uncomfortably close, so my apologies. MSPRA's purpose is to advance public education through responsible communication. One of the ways that we do this is by recognizing school communicators' outstanding work. And this year, Clarkston has been recognized for 3 such projects through MSPRA's Excellence Awards, which celebrate digital and print publications that meet rigorous criteria and are judged by PR professionals across the country. It is my honor to present Clarkston Community Schools with the Award of Excellence, which is the highest level of recognition for CSM Tech marketing materials and the CCS Connection newsletter. I also want to present Clarkston with the Award of Merit for the CSM Tech promotional video. Congratulations to the communications team and the district. And I have one more item to share before you move ahead with your meeting. The suspense, is it building?
Oh, look, he is here. There he is.
It is also my great honor to present one of MSPRA's most prestigious awards to a Clarkston Community Schools leader who embodies communication excellence. Dr. Sean Ryan has been named the 2024 MSPRA Superintendent Communicator of the Year. Congratulations. This award recognizes one practicing superintendent in the state of Michigan for outstanding school public relations and communications leadership. It was clear to our expert panel of judges that Dr. Ryan understands the value of year-round ongoing communications, invests in communication tools, strategically works with the district's communication professional, practices communication management techniques, and demonstrates excellent personal communication skills, such as ethics, honesty, transparency, and active listening. According to his nomination, Dr. Ryan has built a strong reputation as a community builder and a public education advocate in his nearly 3-decade career at Clarkston. As superintendent, he emphasizes being accessible, open, and respectful. He is a natural communicator and has invested in strategic communication efforts for the district by supporting resources to grow the communications department, adding district publications like CCS Connection, and providing communication and leadership training, like he mentioned this evening, for various staff groups. Dr. Ryan has actively looked for ways to better communicate with and empower staff and students through numerous innovative approaches. Perhaps the most telling sign of his communication prowess is his essential role in passing a $197.5 million bond. Congratulations again to Dr. Ryan and the entire Clarkston Community Schools team. We look forward to celebrating your district and the superintendent's honors further at MSPRA's annual conference in March. Congratulations.
I have worked with Dr. Ryan for probably almost the last 10 years, and I cannot imagine that there could be a better communicator of any superintendent in the state of Michigan. And it's communication at every level. It's not just his interaction with board members and his ability to talk to us and discuss with us the initiatives of the district. It's talking to parents, it's talking to students, it's talking to everyone. He is a truly gifted communicator, and our school district is absolutely the better for it, and we're proud of you. So congratulations again. Would you like to communicate?
I'm speechless, so thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely a team effort all the way.
May we take a few pictures before we carry on?
I'm sorry?
May we take a few pictures before the...
I think let's do that right now.
Okay,
yeah.
just a moment.
I was watching his face.
Kudos to everyone for keeping a secret.
Let's go down there too.
I feel like we should like pick them up.
Get one with us. Take that one with us. I know. That's where they moved.
Is it all about you, Stephanie?
No, he
You
said
just want to be in a picture?
I just louder. He said it first.
I did. Come on, let's go.
So we're going down? According to Greg, not me. The leadership says yes. Although we all have black shoes on. Twinners. It's fall attire.
She was hoping the Bears Gary call you guys got.
It's a night of celebration, what can I say? Thank you. Okay, as Dr. Ryan mentioned a moment ago, we've had several Veterans Day celebrations throughout the district, and we are very, very delighted tonight to hear from two of our Clarkston Junior High School students to share their thoughts on Veterans Day. Dr. Ryan, would you like to introduce this?
I believe we first have Miss Erin Shaw, who please come up. Erin, Ms. Shaw is one of our language arts teachers at Clarkston Junior High, and all the way back to when I was her principal. She's done an amazing job supporting and leading and pushing our kids forward when it comes to being able to celebrate our veterans and throughout the year. This is just kind of one opportunity. And I think what better way of being able to honor our veterans is to bring student voice into it. And Erin, you want to talk about the quick process that our students are with us here tonight, and then
Sure.
they can come up and share their
Absolutely.
notes. Thank you.
Yep. Both of these students are in my class, so we start the process actually in late September, looking for a veteran to honor. And then, of course, we hope they're inspired to write these speeches, which these two have. And then they go through a process where they have to compete for it. So I think this year we had, 15 I can't remember how many were in the room, but there were quite a few. And we have a couple of staff panel, and we vote it down until we get our final 2 finalists who came to speak with you today. So, if you do want me to introduce them, okay,
Yes, please.
go ahead, both of you come up. You can support each other, right? And so these are 2 of our speakers this year. We actually had 6 student speakers this year, so I was pretty proud of that. We could not narrow it down from 3 to 2, so we just went with the 3. And so I have Evelyn here and Tyler, and they're going to speak for you, and these are their speeches, and they did write them, so.
Hello and welcome. My name is Evelyn Famaro, and I'm honored to be speaking here today. I want to thank everyone for their bravery and commitment to this country. Today is a day of remembrance for the ones who had enough courage to put their life on the line for their nation. November 11th isn't just another date on the calendar. It's a day to honor the soldiers who had the amount of bravery and dedication to say goodbye to their families, not knowing if they would ever see them again. Packing up their lives and saying goodbye, unsure of where they may end up. But the ones fortunate enough to come home and feel the touch of their families again. These are the people we need to honor the most. Our freedom isn't just given to us, it was gained by the amazing men and women in our armed forces, the individuals strong enough to fight for the nation, strong enough to wake up and persevere through every aspect of combat, fighting every obstacle they are faced with, obstacles no one else can even imagine pushing through. There's a deeper meaning of today than many of us know, as we are unknowing of the sacrifices our veterans have made, admiring the ones who had to live through horrendous circumstances, as to many of us, that is all just a nightmare. As I stand here, I look back on my life, grateful to be sitting in a classroom, learning about wars instead of them being a reality. Although it may be a fantasy to me, it isn't to the veterans here today. The sacrifices the men and women have made for others will forever be cherished. Furthermore, Veterans Day serves to educate about the significance of the armed forces. We instill a deeper meaning and appreciation for the ones who defend our nation. It reminds us that the freedom we have cannot be taken for granted, as men and women earned our rights through courageous actions and hard work while representing their country in battle. Not only do veterans deserve recognition, but the families, as they say goodbye to a loved one unaware of the heartache they would endure. As I spoke to my grandfather, a proud military veteran, he enlightened me about his experience in the Army. He explained hardships of battle and what they went through in preparation. They were put through intense training, enduring so much physical and mental pain. My grandfather stated, as you watch it happen right before your eyes, it's like a nightmare that never goes away. Although war was hard, I know he is so incredibly thankful to call himself a veteran, and I'm sure everyone else here in this room feels the same. In conclusion, Veterans Day is a day of remembrance and respect. As our red, white, and blue flag stands tall, we have our veterans to thank. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tyler Craig, and I will be discussing why celebrating Veterans Day is important. So, Veterans Day is so important to celebrate because we have the opportunity to honor those that are still with us today that made a huge sacrifice for our country. My grandpa, a veteran who served in the Vietnam War, explained to me that when he returned from serving, he was given strict orders not to wear his uniform in public. He stated, "I couldn't even go to church with my mother wearing my uniform for fear of being spit on or rocks thrown at me." It is sad that he was not celebrated for the service that his country asked him to do. My hope is that we will change this as a nation. My main point suggests that not only are we celebrating the veterans' sacrifice, but the families. We are also celebrating this day to show appreciation and recognize that veterans are the reason that we have the freedoms that we do. If we did not celebrate Veterans Day, we would be dishonoring every man or woman's sacrifice, contribution, and devotion that they contributed to serving our country. To begin, veterans are the reason that every day we have the freedoms that we do. Throughout history, veterans have fought to protect the principles that we value, such as freedom of speech, religion, and assembly, and they have done so at a great sacrifice. If it weren't for these sacrifices, we would be living in a very different America, and would likely live in fear. Veterans deserve our gratitude for giving up their freedoms and their safety to protect the people of America's safety and freedoms. It is important year after year to celebrate this day as a reminder of the collective effort veterans have made to ensure our rights and liberties. Celebrating the freedoms veterans fought so hard to protect also reminds us that freedom isn't handed out, but is something that is earned through courage and strength. Furthermore, the sole purpose of Veterans Day is to honor and appreciate those for their service, and especially living veterans. Originally, Veterans Day was established as Armistice Day to commemorate the end of World War I, and it was later brought in to recognize all U.S. veterans on June 1st, 1954. This highlights the importance of showing appreciation to all veterans as they have each been impacted from their service, no matter what war they fought. Some significant challenges that they face following service are impacts like mental or physical trauma. For example, my grandpa doesn't speak about his experience during his time in Vietnam because it is too horrible for him to relive. Further, many veterans experience PTSD and anxiety because of their experiences in service or combat. Injuries acquired during service can also lead to long-lasting health issues and disabilities, all of which should not go unnoticed, exemplifying why appreciating the sacrifice they made is important. As I stated in the beginning of my speech, my grandpa explained to me that he and others were shunned when they came back from war. They weren't appreciated, and what they had undergone meant nothing. Veterans today should never have been shunned but celebrated for their commitment. Lastly, the families of veterans are also deeply affected, and their sacrifice is not always recognized. For example, a family's sacrifice to send off a son, father, or even a mother to war not knowing they would ever see their loved one again is overlooked. And according to National Veterans Homeless Support, military families often endure long separations, frequent moves, and the emotional toll of having a loved one in a dangerous line of work. This text reveals the significance of why military families should not go unrecognized, as they are also truly something to honor and appreciate. To conclude, it is important to celebrate Veterans Day as it fosters gratitude and respect among communities and those all around the U.S., emphasizing the values of peace and freedoms. Celebrating Veterans Day also inspires current and future generations that serving your country comes with immense value and responsibility. Overall, if we do not celebrate this day, we would be doing a huge disservice to those who sacrificed moments, such as their baby's first steps, anniversaries, career opportunities, and much more. The contributions and impacts that every veteran has made today should always be honored. Thank you.
Yeah, Tyler and Evelyn could just hold on for one quick, well, you can pet the dog, that's obvious, that's pretty important. So. But thank you so much for sharing those powerful words with us today. Your speeches remind us of the importance of honoring those who have served our country and preserved our freedoms. You did a great job of really explaining what Veterans Day is all about. And echoing what Dr. Ryan said before, to all of our veterans, we extend our deepest gratitude for your courage, sacrifice, and commitment. As Dr. Ryan mentioned, we had quite a few activities throughout the district today celebrating Veterans Day, and we are all proud to be part of a community that honors and respects our veterans and respects their service. So thank you for being part of those celebrations. And Tyler and Evelyn, if you come up here, we would like to shake your hands, and we have some goodies for you as well.
You can bring the dog.
Oh, you can bring the dog, yeah. I mean, just come around this way.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. It was wonderful. Very good speech. Nice essay.
Great job.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Nice job.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for the families of our student speakers today. You obviously have done an outstanding job as well, so we thank you. Item 5.3 is a presentation on the non-homestead and Board of Education election results, and we will turn that over to Mrs. McLean.
Thank you. I'm just reporting on the results of last Tuesday's election that included our non-homestead millage as well as Board of Education member elections. Our non-homestead millage had a total of 27,274 votes, 17,029 for, and 10,245 against. Board members, there were 2 6-year terms on the ballot and 1 2-year term. And Mike Clark and Stephanie Crane were elected for those 2 6-year terms. Greg Need was elected for the 2-year term, and those all begin January 1 of 2025.
Thank you, Mrs. McLean. Congratulations to Mrs. Crane. Congratulations to Mr. Clark, who is in here in the audience today. So thank you for being with us. And we look forward to your joining the board January 1st. I don't believe we need to take any action, or do we?
Nope.
Mrs. Love?
Oh, I was just wondering if you could say the percentages of the, not of the schoolwork vote, but of the passing of the millage.
If you give me a minute to do quick math, sure.
Oh, okay.
I just have numbers.
Sorry, I thought you might have it right there. I can look it up.
Pardon me?
I believe it was about, I'm going to guess because I was watching it all evening long. I think it was, I want to say 62 point something to 37.
Okay, thanks.
For those of you that are joining us for the presentations, you are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if you would like to take off, we'd certainly understand that as well. We thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you for coming.
Moving to our action items, item 6.1 is approval of personnel changes. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the personnel changes as listed on the attached sheets.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. Mr. Lucido is here if anybody has any questions. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6.2 is the approval of a new course proposal for happiness and well-being. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the new course proposal for the 10th through 12th grade happiness and well-being course as presented.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. Any comments or questions?
I do.
Mrs. Love.
So during the TLC meeting when this was presented, I had a few concerns with it, and my opinion on it is that the curriculum that I saw was just not vast enough to be a whole course. I like the premise of it. I do feel that it would be a better fit in an existing course as, you know, a couple weeks of study. I didn't see evidence of having a whole class around this. That's just my opinion, and that's why I'll be voting no on this.
Thank you, Mrs. Love. Any other comments? Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6.3 is the approval of a server upgrade. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the server upgrade project to People-Driven Technologies in the amount of $55,750 plus a 3% contingency in the amount of $1,672.50 for a total of $57,422.50.
Support.
Motion made and supported. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6.4 is approval of cybersecurity detection and response software. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the purchase of EDR XDR protection service from the identified vendor for a 3-year plan payable annually with the SLCGP grant reimbursing the funds for the first 2 years.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6.5 is the approval of various construction change orders for work at the Clarkston Junior High School. May I excuse me, may I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approve the construction change orders for this work to J.J. Barney in the amount of $58,714, Tanner Supply for the amount of $118,232, Daniels Glass for a complimentary deduction of $173,493,000, Commercial Contracting Corporation in the amount of $133,573, and Quality Air Systems in the amount of $69,207.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. I know Mr. Goodman is in the audience in case anybody has any questions or comments on this item. Any? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item 6.6 is the approval of the food services spend down plan for 2024-2025. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approve the spend down plan for a total recommendation of $567,428.09.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. Dr. Ryan, could you perhaps quickly comment for the benefit of the public as to what this is exactly?
Sure. Since the advent of having lunch for all within Michigan Public Schools, that the overall fund balance based on the federal funding coming into the school district to support these lunches puts the district in a spot where we're having incredibly high participation, as they call it, for food services overall. And I have Matt here in the audience, and you're welcome to come up and kind of shed light on this as well. But in the midst of looking at the costs and the dollars that are brought in the school district to provide for lunches, it created a fund balance or a expended bank account for the food services program. And under state accounting laws and in our own audit, we're required to spend down those dollars in a reasonable amount of time. And to accomplish that, Matt Severson has provided the district with an overall blueprint and a plan to put us back into more of an even-keeled overall balance for those accounts, and that's what you're seeing tonight. Mr. Severson, would you add any other color onto that?
I'd say that's pretty much it. We've gone through a couple of years now of a spend down, so we're just chipping away at replacing equipment that's from 1999 to 2004. I think it was one of the last bonds that they did food service for. So this is just kind of helping finish that off and a few extra things in there too. So that's all this really is right now.
Right, and these dollars cannot be pushed to the general fund in terms of our fund balance of us all, and they're very tightly controlled on what we can spend on within the school district because I tried.
Yes.
In many different avenues to look at ways that we could utilize the funds, but food services managed to provide a really strong plan.
Okay, Mrs. Egan, would you like
Yes,
to?
I would like to correct the motion. The amount that we are approving for spend down is $564,428.09.
Support.
Friendly amendment accepted.
Thank you. Any other questions then for Mr. Severson? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion with a friendly amendment on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6.7 is the approval of the 2023-24 audit. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the audit for June 30th, 2024 as presented.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. I think I'll make my annual comment that every year I've been on the board, we have received an unmodified opinion, the highest level of audit that is possible. That is a real testament to our Mrs. Rogers and our department to make sure that our financial records are in extremely good order, and it was confirmed by the audit findings. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the audit, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 7.1 is our monthly finance report, and we will bring up again Mrs. Rogers.
Okay, so this is a report That'll get us, oops, sorry about that. Okay. Hit the wrong button there. This is a report that'll get us through October 31st, 24. It has got September and October data in it. And it gets you to a budget of actual revenues now of 17.61%. And as you can see, the majority of, we've already received 84% of our local revenue because we get 100% summer tax collection. And we're starting to slowly see the state and the federal revenue coming in. Budget to actual expenditures is at 23%. And then you have your October 31 fund equity now dipping down to 20.54 million. And then as you received our audit, our fund balance audited is 30.23 million. So do you have any questions on any of the materials that were supplied to you?
Any questions for Mrs. Rogers? Okay, thank you very much. We have no discussion items tonight. Item 9 is our second opportunity for a citizen comment for anyone who would like to address the board on any topic whatsoever. Anybody sign up? Okay. We do have one. Please come up to the podium and state your name and address, and we will hear your comment.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Get that right? My name is Grant Downs. I live at 5074 T. O'Hara Boulevard over in Thundera Park. Here tonight to express a concern to the board, specifically around communication of the different threats that are received at time to time within the schools. I have students in the junior high and the middle school and the elementary school. I guess I'll start and acknowledge there was an award given for communication, and so I will say I had reached out to Dr. Ryan a couple years ago with concerns to the office. He called me right back. We had a great conversation, very appreciative. The district has done a great job facing this challenge that unfortunately is growing, right, and becomes more present, unfortunately. But I see one major hole right now in those communications, and that is there's not a follow-up at the end. There's not information around what the action was for the student if there was an actual student and an actual threat, understanding there are rumors and online things that go on. There's not a loop closed is my concern, and a concern I know I share with others. To be a little more specific, understanding that there's issues with privacy and those sort of things that go on around that, it would seem to me that we would still be able to get information around timelines, perhaps, of return to school, information on whether a decision was made around expulsion or suspension, without necessarily having to give out private or personal information regarding a student. And I think that's important and missing, and the main reasons there are that it kind of takes away important conversations, safety conversations with our children that we want to have if we knew those timelines. I think we miss an opportunity for deterrence, right, and conversations there. And lastly, I think there's just a peace of mind element as a parent that I know I share with others again, would be much more comfortable if we had that loop closed. And so I guess my question to the board is, what are the barriers and the challenges to kind of close that loop and provide that information?
Okay. Thank you. I'm sure Dr. Ryan will get back to you and address those. Thank you very much for your comments. Okay. Any other citizens who wish to address the board? Okay. Item 10, information items. Item 10.1, we have no school for students. We do have staff professional days, Monday and Tuesday, November 25th and 26th. We have our Thanksgiving recess. We have a student-teacher flex day on Wednesday, November 27th. Our Thanksgiving recess on Thursday and Friday, November 28th and 29th. And our next Board of Education meeting is Monday, December 9th at 7 p.m., a regular meeting here. Item 11 is adjournment. May I have a motion, please?
I move to adjourn. Support.
All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.
I think he was kidding.